Well, right now we are on the panel discussion of digital transformation panel discussion, where we're looking at putting AI at the center of digital transformation. Well, we're looking at covering these topics like reimagine the organization with AI at its core, contain or discard legacy processes, apply AI at scale to unlock the value of data, drive home the tenets of data governance and ethical data usage to all data citizens across the country, understand the benefits of cloud-based AI, reinvent processes that previously requires physical documents to become paperless, operating in an agile manner, applying AI to discover emerging trends, assessing where organizational velocity is needed and where remote work could drive productivity, and deploying new models leveraging agile and remote. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now for our panelists, we first up got Sharmishta Dasgupta, Deputy Director General, Nationals Informatics Center. Well, Sharmishta heads the Center of Excellence in the Artificial Intelligence at the National Informatics Center. She has more than 15 years of experience in artificial intelligence, project solving, and project management at the National Informatics Center. Her work interests could comprise computer vision, natural language processing, conversational AI, deep learning, and high-speed computing. Well, we also are joined by Athuna Roy, Group CIO, Biocon Group. Well, Athuna currently being the Group CIO of Biocon, and he has earlier been the Global CIO for about a decade with other large pharmaceuticals company. Athuna has successfully transformed companies using digital initiatives creatively that have generated significant business value multiple times the investment. We're also joined by Raghu Krishnananda, the CTO of Myntra. Raghu comes with a rich experience of building large-scale consumer platforms, leveraging open source technologies, encompassing the big data and machine learning. In his career spanning over 2 decades, he has R&D teams in the US and India in companies such as Myntra, Jabong, Samsung Research, Yahoo, Goldman Sachs, and Citibank. Well, we're also joined by Vishwanath Ramaswamy, the Vice President, Cloud and Cognitive and Security Software, India, South Asia, IBM. Well, Vishwanath is responsible for the sales of all IBM Cloud Security and Cognitive portfolio across IBM India and South Asia, and leads the hybrid cloud integration data platform, AI security software, security services, and cognitive applications, the blockchain and IoT platforms businesses. Well, we also have Rajashri Rao, Head of AI Innovation Hub, R2 Data Labs, Rolls-Royce. Well, Rajashri is a globally acclaimed industry thought leader, visionary advisor, principal consultant, and a mentor in the next-gen technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud, computing, data analytics, robotics, Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, blockchain, and smart cities nation across industry verticals. Well, this entire conversation and the panel is going to be moderated by Dr. Avik Sarkar, Professor, Technology, Data and Public Policy, Indian School of Business. Well, Dr. Sarkar has 18 years of experience across different aspects of artificial intelligence, data science, analytics. At ISB, Dr. Sarkar is heading the development of India Data Portal. Dr. Sarkar is a multiple TEDx speaker and has been nominated amongst the top 10 data scientists in India. So thank you so much to our incredible panel for joining us and being a part of the World AI Show. Over to you, sir. Mr. Sarkar, if you can take it forward.
Thank you. Thanks to Trescon for organizing this event. Can I first request Sharmishta ma'am and Mr. Athunu to switch on their videos so that everyone is visible, if that's all right with you. So it was really interesting. The key from Mr. Abhishek and Ramanan. I had worked very closely with them in the past, and they provided a very nice overview about what AI is doing and the current situation in India. It was really nice the way Mr. Ramanan tied all the things with the current Atmanirbhar program of the government of India. And also Abhishek Singh gave a very good overview about the various domains. He touched upon our large number of domains, starting from education, fintech, healthcare, and other things. He touched upon a lot of things. what I would like to go through in this panel with this stellar cast of people in this panel to go a bit deeper into understanding some of the issues around AI, how we can make it successful, can increase the adoption of it, and understanding some of those broad aspects around it. So, with that, what I will request is that each of the panelists, if they can make about a 3 minutes opening speech, giving an overview about one application, one AI application that they have worked in the last 1 or 2 years in the Indian context that they feel is the most impactful one. One line, one or two, whatever, where it has a huge impact, particularly the societal. If it has reached people's life, it has helped a lot of people in doing certain things very well. So I think that societal impact is what I am looking at, and also then touch upon how AI had played a role in that use case to start with. So I would like to start with the Vishwanath, and given that we had just government speakers now, if it's all right, I would like to go with Sharmishta ma'am at the end, so that Sharmishta ma'am can give an overview about the things there. So I would like to start with Mr. Vishwanath, and IBM is also a sponsor for this event. So Mr. Vishwanath, if you can please give your overview, that will be great.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarkar. It's indeed a pleasure for me to represent IBM in this prestigious World AI Show. Thank you, and it's indeed a delight to hear Dr. Ramanan and Mr. Abhishek Singh as well as a keynote. And thank you very much for the panelists out here, the distinguished panelists. So, as Dr. Avik had mentioned, AI, artificial intelligence, is going to be pervasive, right? That's like kind of fundamental. As our CEO and our deep insights say, that every company is going to soon become an AI company, irrespective of the industry where we are. So IBM has been the number one leader globally on the AI front, and we've had many use cases which touched upon the lives of citizens and the society at large across the globe as well as within India. So let me give you a few examples of some of the use cases. So one such use case was in the industry of general insurance, where all of us are very familiar and all of us own two-wheelers and four-wheelers. And I'm sure Rajashri, who is there out here, who runs the AI competency for Rolls-Royce, everyone owns a four-wheeler out here. It becomes very imperative on the insurance side that, God forbid, any damage happens to the vehicle, the process taken or the time taken for the physical documentation, the surveyor, the claims becomes a very lengthy process as well. And it's just not true within India, across the globe as well, right? So, God forbid, the car met up with an accident, and you would need the physical surveyor out there to check the documents, take photographs, and then put the claims across. So, IBM worked with this general insurance company in India, one of the leading general insurance companies in India, and we created an AI-based platform and an application, what we call as a claimless damage assessment tool, that as we call it, which fundamentally goes by image assessment of a vehicle. So we developed a deep learning model for the organization across various models of cars, which are on the roads of Indian streets, which are on the Indian roads, could be of any brand, any variant of a brand, and so on and so forth. And and based on the damages which the owner of the vehicle could send through the mobile app, the process for claiming the insurance has reduced from probably about 15 to 20 days, which used to take earlier. By the time you claim the insurance, apply, and the assessment happens, and then finally the insurance claim amount reaches the bank account. Now, because of this AI platform and because of deep visual technologies which we have developed, we could reduce the response time by about by just few minutes, right? It's almost about 15 to 20, I would say 15 to 30 minutes right now, with a high level of accuracy. So in fact, this company started off with an insurance claim clip level of say of 50,000. They've upped the claim levels now, and gradually, as the deep learning model started getting more and more knowledge about the models and the type of damages, the accuracy levels of that data model or the AI model only improved by the day, by the time, right? So that is something which I think has been an extensive one which really touched upon various lives, and probably another one which I would say which has touched the society at large. We work very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture in India, where with our weather company, we have the weather company, which is an IBM company, and building an AI model. We kind of built predictive AI models for precision agriculture, especially for the farmers in India, right? Of when do you actually need to sow the seeds? What's the right time for farming them, and so on and so forth, to get the maximum yield out of the seeds which are sown for that particular crop. In fact, we have deployed it across many states in India. To start off with, we deployed in Maharashtra, in Nanded district, in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajkot district, in Gujarat as well, and so on and so forth. And probably, but you mentioned Dr. Sarkar too, I would probably take the third one, which is very critical, and Dr. Ramanan really alluded to it, that AI needs to start at a very foundational stage. And we are very pleased to mention that we have collaborated with the Central Board of Secondary Education. IBM has collaborated with Central Board of Secondary Education, whom we more colloquially know as CBSE, to building AI curriculum in the 12th standard students and probably few high school students as well, across 20 odd states, 20 plus states across the country. And AI is a part of the curriculum right at a very young age. So all these three different variety of cases, of course, there are many more I could talk about in retail, healthcare, pharma, insurance, and so on and so forth. But I thought that these are the three which really touched the lives of the society at large.
Thanks, Mr. Vishwanath. That was a very good overview that you provided from the three different sectors, from insurance to education to agriculture. Because agriculture is something which really touches a lot of people's life, and education also, like it touches everyone's life, and we cannot go with that. So it's very important issues. It's a sad fact about insurance that a lot of Indians don't have insurance, but I think that is something that needs to improve in India. Nothing that IBM can do much about it. I think that's more general awareness of the people. Yes. So, Mr. Atanu Roy, can I ask you next to provide your perspective, because Biocon can provide a what you are doing in the healthcare pharmaceutical sector.
Yeah, good morning to all of you, and it is a pleasure being here. So one thing,
can you switch on your camera? Switch on your camera.
So I'm not able to do that. The video was there, but somehow I'm not able to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So so what one thing before I start on the AI part, but one thing which I observed, because we were being in the pharmaceutical industry, we were categorized as one of the essential services, and our operations had to continue in full force continuously, right from March 22nd, when the lockdown was announced. So what I found is, for the complete supply chain to work, not only our factories had to work, but the entire ecosystem had to work, which included our suppliers, transporters, logistics service providers, export guys, the customs guys, everybody. And then only we can get our material, raw materials, and also ship our products. Within 2 weeks, while our companies started working immediately, even remotely, so everything had to be done with where operations can be handled remotely. What gives me immense satisfaction that while the solutions were extended to be handled remotely, gave us extremely high satisfaction that even our business partners, transport logistics providers, CNFA agents who are distributed throughout the country in various small places, who might not have handled resources extensively earlier, were able to access applications, handle applications very easily and learn very fast. So the digital divide which we were talking about, actually we were able to use technology to address the digital divide itself by creating various user-friendly applications, building design thinking into it. So I think what just earlier, Mr. Ramanan was talking about, that we use technology for addressing the digital divide, and that is where I think getting design thinking due the designing these applications helps in doing that. So that gave me huge confidence and satisfaction. Digital divide can actually get addressed, because here we were working with not only the employees of the company and their ability to work from anywhere, but the larger ecosystem, which included transporters and warehouse guys of and some of them in remote areas were barely literate. Coming to where I see AI getting used in pharmaceutical, I think the pharmaceutical industry is taking had been a laggard in using technology, but they are leapfrogging significantly. So in the R&D space, on the new product development, the need for experimentation and learning from past mistakes of failed experiments is helping with the right AI models and machine learning models. It is helping reduce the product development cycle time, because people don't have to now, the scientists and the analysts, they don't have to do all those experiments themselves. Identifying a new molecule based on earlier data is helping them find new molecules, structure of new molecules to target different therapy areas. So it is happening significantly faster. You are doing artificial experimentations, and then you will be finally doing the actual experimentation. The other part is on clinical trials. The amount of time which used to get invested or spent in clinical trials is getting significantly reduced by the right analytical models. And people are also not only using it during the COVID clinical trials, but also now that has become the norm. On the manufacturing side and the quality side, the mistakes which people used to make in the processes, the complete value chain, we are seeing AI getting used to mistake proof.
Atanu, we can come back again.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, because we're going to touch about applications.
Initial applications. Yeah.
Yes, so thanks. That gives a good overview about the pharmaceutical sector. So can I invite Mr. Raghu to talk about what the type of AI innovations they are doing at Mitra?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Pleasure to be on this panel. So Mitra, as most of you or probably know, is one of the premier fashion e-commerce platforms in the country. So our mission here is to use technology to democratize fashion. So technology is at the core of what we do, and we use AI ML across all aspects of our business, right? So we use shallow and deep learning techniques, to do like, to solve optimization problems, prediction problems, NLP, computer vision problems, and so on. So I'll take a couple of examples to kind of just illustrate on, what kind of, how we're solving some of the, problems here, right? So one such example is personalization and recommendation, right? So for any e-commerce company, this is actually at the one of the core problems that we try to solve. So just to kind of give you a bit of a scale or why this is important. So we have on Myntra about 900,000 styles, right, of products. So as you can imagine, as a customer, you go in there, you could just get quite lost, trying to kind of find what you need. So how can we understand the customer needs and really recommend the right products? Is the core problem that we're trying to solve. So this could be both the how do we shape the user journey, and then because a new user would have different needs from the platform compared to, let's say, somebody who already has bought on Myntra, who's familiar with everything and so on, and also what kind of products that this person needs, whether in his brand preferences, his or her brand preferences, and so on and so forth, color preferences, and so on and so forth, right? So we have a lot of data that we have from the customer in terms of their previous browse history, purchase history, what kind of products this person has wish listed, and so on. And using all of these signals, we recommend products. So this could be like content that you will recommend on the, let's say, the carousels that you see on our website and app, or how do we even reorder the widgets there? What you would see would be different than what somebody else would see. Based on previous purchases, like because you bought a certain brand, so we know that you have an affinity to a certain brand. Recommending similar brands in that space. These are some of the things, and then let's say you have you're about to buy a certain product. What other things that could go well, from a matching point of view, go well with this particular, let's say a shirt or a trouser. So these are some of the ways that we're using AI to do some recommendations, right? Another unique problem, which is unique to the fashion industry, is a size and fit problem, right? So as a lot of you, as I'm sure you'll all know, so I mean, if you buy, let's say, an L from a brand, let's say an Under Armour, doesn't mean that L is the right size for you for, let's say, a Nike or a Reebok or any other brand, right? So each one has its own unique size and fit. So really trying to understand based on previous purchases and preferences from the customer, how do we recommend the right size, which so that the customer can buy with confidence. Of course, the customer can always return, if something doesn't fit, but how do you minimize that, and take that whole, make that whole journey seamless, right? So that's a very unique problem to our industry, which we're again trying to solve. So yeah, I could go on and give a few more examples, but maybe I can come back and talk about it later.
Thanks, Raghu. That were very to the point and very pertinent examples that touches everyone's life today, because we are all, I think, addicted to online shopping. Also more because of COVID, because that was the primary medium now due to the new normal that has come up.
That's right.
So now coming to Rajeshri, if you can share some experiences or use cases from a Rolls-Royce perspective, or anything else that you have worked
on. Hi, very good morning to you all. Thank you so much for having me on this panel. It's my pleasure. I would like to highlight what recently Rolls-Royce announced, right? Rolls-Royce, just the CEO Warren East recently in the London AI Summit announced that Rolls-Royce has made the 2 breakthroughs in artificial intelligence ethics, which is a very important focus area, which could help gain the society's trust of technology and also accelerate the next generation of industrialization, which is known as the Industry 5.0. So what is the breakthrough all about? The first breakthrough is the AI ethics framework, which is a method that any organization can use to ensure the decisions it takes to use the AI in critical and non-critical applications are ethical. That's number one. This is the first time AI ethics for industrial context have moved beyond theory and into the practical application. So the second was within the same framework. It is a step-by-step process for ensuring the outcomes of AI algorithms can be trusted. So that's, again, the trust is a very important element. So this 5-layer checking system focuses on the outputs of the algorithms and not the algorithms themselves, which are constantly changing. So the checking system basically prevents the biases from developing, which is developed in the algorithms undetected, and with results along being constantly monitored. So it ensures that they are trustworthy. So this is the ethics framework which we have developed, and we have also, worked with different industry verticals across businesses, and then tried to test the framework. So as per the announcement, this framework will be made available coming months so that the industry at large could benefit. So this is the development which we have done as part of the R-Square Data Labs, as part of our innovation mission.
Thanks, Rajeshri. That's a very important issue in AI, the ethical aspects, which is good to hear that you have taken some concrete steps on that, because that's something there is a lot of discussion, lot of documentation that has come from global players like IEEE, IBM has some platform, Microsoft has some platform on that. But it's not something which is common framework that has been accepted across the industry. So it's a good step in the right direction. Sharmishta ma'am, now if I can come to you, first request you to switch on your video if there are no technical issues. And the next is that I would like you to talk on some use case or the NIC AI Center of Excellence that you have recently started. Anything that you would like to highlight on?
Good morning, everybody. I am heading the Center of Excellence in AI, and today I will talk about how we can, in e-governance, how can we use AI to bridge the digital divide and do active intervention for digital transformation. See, what happens is from internet advent in late 90s to cloud and then mobile computing and now high-speed computing being made available, India has bolstered its digital infrastructure and tried to bridge the digital divide. With internet and cloud technology, we have had mission mode projects running for the benefit of all citizens, by which millions of records in citizen assets got created, as well as for government infrastructure. From citizen toilet construction to house construction, roads, wells, schools, to weather forecasting and soil health, for fertilizer distribution from factories to farmers, all contribute to make a multifaceted, rich data set for both urban and rural India, which can be harnessed for better policy making, enhanced transparency, and better governance. So I will take one use case, which is of the Swachh Bharat mission, cleanliness mission. We started with Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, in which 5 million individual household records were created by citizens. Citizens get the scheme benefit as direct benefit transfers to their bank accounts. Final one, when it is done in two installment. The first one is done when the people apply with their photographs on the web portal, and then the sanitary inspector of that particular ward goes there and takes whether it is an insanitary toilet or whether there is no toilet. So it will then only the application gets approved, and they give the first round of installment to them. So what happens is, one round sanitary inspectors anyway go and see. Okay. Now what happens when they have finally constructed the toilet? They have to load their beneficiary photo, means toilet seat photo of the it will be a geotag photo of the toilet seat constructed, along with the beneficiary in the foreground or background, whatever you say. It will be there, both will be there on the photograph. Now when this is loaded into the system, then they get their final beneficiary installment. Now what happens is, when you are working with so many citizens and you have a limited number of ward inspectors, then obviously their be delays which are created in approval of the if the board's inspector has to go and verify, then there is more delay. So what we did is we used to get a lot of such in our help desk, which was made for technical. Actually, it was a multi-stakeholder multi-tenancy platform, so that the state government was also there, the local self-government like municipal corporations were also there, and the sanitary inspectors were also there, and the citizens were also there. So now what happens is, if in our technical desktop setup, when we are trying to answer the queries for the ministry, for the different social government units, or like dashboard and all that, there also the citizens also used to call saying that we are not getting the final installment, it is getting very delayed. So there had to be something which course correction had to be taking place. So by that time, I was shifted to the Center of Excellence in AI from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, where I was looking after this mission mode project. So I thought, what can be done about it? So what we did was, because there were geotag toilet photos were uploaded with beneficiary, and we had taken the applicant photo at the time of what we did was, we did annotation of around 16,000 images, and these were millions of images. So we could 16,000 images annotated and developed the model and developed a mobile app which allowed the citizens to get the information. If they load it today, tomorrow by batch processing on a supercomputing facility we did, and next day morning they will get whether it is the photo uploaded is correct or not, whether there was a sanitary toilet visible in the photo, or whether the citizen visible in the photo. And that helped the people cut down the otherwise they would stand in a wait in a queue when a sanitary inspector cancelled it, then they will again load the photo. So it was a waste of time. So this work cycle we had reduced. So this is an active intervention in a running of a government benefit scheme. So I can like that. We have other use cases also, like we have worked for conversational AI, facilitating conversational AI in the form of chatbots and voice bots in multiple Indian languages. Like we have given in Khas chatbots, we have allowed in 11 languages, regional languages. We using Matra transliteration APIs on Bharat API we have given, and we have done for voice bot also, we have done for English and Hindi for all. So there is a PM Farmer Kisan scheme, Samman Nidhi Yojana, which is getting 1 lakh calls per day on a basic telephone. To find out about their scheme benefits, when they are getting that benefit, whether they have got it, like that. So there are many examples we have, but I think there is a time limit of 3, so I will stop here.
Thanks a lot, Sharmishta ma'am. Thanks for your. I think that the Swachh Bharat case is really amazing, because that is something that is so important, and the current government also taken cleanliness as a very important aspect, and something like say AI can help in toilets is something that is really innovative. We think about AI in healthcare, medicine, but you are going really inside in the private place and doing the evaluation of toilets based on AI is really innovative use case. We'll have to hear more about it, maybe a whole lecture on that at some other point in time. But I would like to see, we always hear about the rosy side of AI, and given the interest of time, I just want to touch upon one aspect. And if all of you can talk about what are the major barriers or challenges that you faced in your AI journey. It can be related to data, infrastructure, or people, or convincing people that AI is helpful for them. So if you can talk about one major roadblock in your AI journey when you try to implement a project on AI, and what did you or your organization do to overcome that roadblock? So that is one point, just one roadblock, and what did you or your organization do to overcome that? So you can go in any order. If you want to follow the same order, Vishwanath, you can start. Keep it brief because we are already late.
Okay, so sure. Okay, so a couple of, I would say roadblocks. It's only a kind of putting the pieces of the Lego puzzle together, right? So fundamentally, there is no AI without IA, right? And what do I mean by IA is information architecture, right? If an organization does not really have its information and data architecture in place, no matter whatever the best of the AI algorithms and the good technology, what you actually deploy, will not come to fruition if there is no great information architecture. So that is one. Second is the processes which organizations still follow because of the lack of IA continue to be archaic, right? They are not evolved. I did hear earlier as well from one of the panelists and the previous session as well that these processes need to be renewed and revisited to embark on the digital reinvention. So fundamentally, I would say these two. So in pursuit of that, what IBM has really done is wherever we have implemented, while Mr. Raghu had mentioned about a beautiful case in Myntra, we have done a similar one in some of the other clients as well, like Bestseller and a couple of others like Wildcraft and so on, and supply chain, to the point what Atanu also mentioned. In supply chain, we have done that. What we have fundamentally done is we have kind of put the information architecture in place for the organization to start with. Because with the broad breadth of portfolio and domain expertise and the solutions which are available with IBM across, we first get the IA piece in place before you embark on the journey of AI, right? So that is very, very fundamental. And in the process, what really happens, you start revisiting some of the archaic or legacy processes which an organization has been following, and how do you modernize them, right? Just not modernize in terms of a technology word of containerization or anything of the sort, but how do you really modernize these processes? And as a corollary to that, you modernize applications as well. So two things. One is information architecture is very, very pertinent. If you do not know where your data sources are and you do not stitch up the data sources and make them into a meaningful information from data to information, you need to have that robust IA design.
Yes. So I think, Vishwanath, I'm really glad that you talked about this aspect, because often we paint a very rosy picture of AI. And a lot of the AI projects in my long corporate career I've seen, there are major challenges that organizations face. Like we start on a project, maybe it's a consulting company, and then there's a delay of say 9 months. Because this information that you're talking about, the data and the system, are not in place that we can put it in an AI system. AI system looks like nice, but I think this is very thanks that you actually raised this issue. And this is something that organizations need to know, that they need to first have their house in order from the infrastructure and data perspective before they can think about AI. And often with so many chatter around AI and not without the discussion on this part, people often get blinded by this. But it's good that you brought it to the focus. Atanu, would you like to touch upon something from your organization, Biocon's perspective?
Yeah. So, from our organization and similar organizations in pharma, actually, for all these initiatives, getting the data from other sources was always a challenge. When I say other sources, is you had the enterprise system, but the benefits of AI, you need to get data from various instruments and various equipments, and then the convergence of data is going to show magic. And that is where getting the data from multiple sources, especially equipments, some of them are very old equipments, are generally a challenge. And that is where the proxy of using IoT and sensors are helping, but they are time consuming and sometimes expensive to implement. The other part is the master data management. How do you know that all these data, they relate to the same thing? So this master data management and transactional data management is a very non-glamorous thing, and no one wants to work in this type of data cleansing and all that stuff. But unless that is done, it doesn't help. But also the excitement of AI will go. So one has to take the balanced approach of how much data is the critical mass to start getting results, and while you keep augmenting the data and getting from other sources and then getting the results. So that is exactly what we did. We took some critical mass of data. We had to extract data from many other equipments and other sources which was not there here, and started giving some meaningful results for the user so that they remain excited and get benefits out of it, while collecting other data from other data sources. And that master data management and linking that to the key subject, it becomes extremely important. And there again we used AI to help us in doing master data management.
Thanks, Atanu. Yes, you stressed on the similar points that Vishnu also touched upon. And when we hear about AI being introduced in school level, I wonder how the students at school level, and also a lot of the private companies are teaching AI to kids starting 5 years, 6 years old, how they will learn this aspect of merging data from multiple sources and the data cleaning aspect, which tend to take up 70-80% of the time in an AI project. How do they pick up on this aspect? I think if you can, when you're designing those courses, you can keep some element, because whenever we, whenever we give students to work on some AI problem, we give them a clean data set. This is a data set, now just go and apply the deep learning algorithm. But the actual hard part is hardly taught in schools or academia, and that becomes a big gap. So I think a very, very good point that you have raised. Raghu, would you like to touch upon something from your perspective about what the challenges?
Sure, Avik. Yeah. So if you look at implementation of an AI solution and compare it with any other implementation for technical solution, there are a lot of similarities and a couple of very distinct kind of challenges, right, for when we implement an AI solution. So if you look, the key aspects are, let's say identifying the right business problem to solve, the adoption of the solution, the availability of tools and algorithms and so on, and the knowledge base availability, the infrastructure problem, and the data problem, right? So these are kind of the key kind of things that we're talking about. As I said, so many of these are common for other technology implementations, but I'll call out a couple which are very unique to AI, right? So starting from the, let's say, the bottom, data is fundamental to AI, right? So most of our solutions are based on supervised learning, so which means you need a lot of data and you need labeled data, right? So that's like where you need annotation, clean labeled data is availability of that is a big problem. So the way we went about solving that, there is especially as depending on the kind of nature of the problem that you need to solve, you either need lesser amount of data, whether it is like when you're optimizing like a routing problem or capacity problem, versus, let's say, a recommendation that I talked about where you need lots of data, right? So annotation becomes very important. So you need to have annotators and clean data, so to create the ground truth based on which you can train your models. So that would be one challenge that is unique to AI. So when you come to the availability of algorithms, AI has been democratized even from kind of the get-go. So there's a plethora of models available in the public domain. So it is now a question of our data scientists being able to say, okay, which models are applicable to solve this, most appropriate to this problem. So you need to consider various things like, latency, what kind of latency you expect, how much of data is available, what kind of accuracy you're looking for, and then even the size of the data model, whether it has to sit on like a smaller resource constrained device, or let's say sitting on the server. So all these kind of things you need to kind of keep in mind while you're actually picking the right data model.
Sounds good. I think it's just good to just touch upon only one in the interest of time.
Sure. Yeah. So, I would say one other thing is the adoption thing. Here, I would say A/B testing is your friend. So it has to be completely data driven. We have to make sure that we are comparing with existing kind of solutions, which are typically kind of replacing. So you need to really go with data to ease the adoption. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. Very helpful. Rajesh, would you like to touch upon something? You talked about the ethical aspect in your openings.
Okay, I'm not going to discuss on ethics aspect, but what I'd like to touch upon is, look, today, I think everybody mentioned about the load of data that is available and how does the machine, leverage those data in identifying and coming up with right suggestions, dashboards. But I have to just talk about what is the breakthrough that's happened. So there is a new algorithm which is called GAN, which is the Generative Adversary Networks. So in the past few years, the AI researchers have made a significant progress using the technique of deep learning, which is when with the sufficient images, the machine learns to say and recognize whether it's a pedestrian, what is the object, or who is crossing the road, etc. Right? So this approach has made it possible for self-driving cars and the conversational technology that powers the likes of the Siri or the Echo, the Alexa, etc. So whereas the deep learning AIs can learn to recognize things, but they have not been good at learning on their own or creating them. So the GAN, the algorithm, today has been able to help the machines to have this imaginations where they don't need, which enables them to draw. It's not just enables them to draw pretty pictures or recognize the images, but it also will make them less reliant on humans to instruct them about the world and the way it functions. And this is a very important aspect, because this has taken away a lot of effort which will have to be done by humans in giving the instructions about a particular image to the AI. So
thank you. That's a very helpful that you provide an overview. So Sharmishta ma'am, would you like to go on?
Is being fed with of 1 million pictures and which contain the pedestrian crossing road or any others, which they need to label it and say what the data is all about. So this is very expensive and labor intensive, but it also limits how well the system can learn on its own. So with the GAN model, they have evolved beyond having to train the AIs to learn on their own. So they don't have to instruct anymore, but they enable the algorithms to learn and identify pictures of their own until they are able to recognize it on their own. So this is a breakthrough that we have done. But however, there are challenges. Probably in the interest of the time, I'm not going to touch upon.
Thank you.
But anyone more information about it can reach out to me. But yes, there are certain challenges, but that will any new mod, any new progression always comes.
So Rajesh, in the interest of time, let me move to Sharmishta ma'am.
AI algorithms.
Yes. So Sharmishta ma'am, would you like to share your views on what are the major challenges that your organization face?
Yeah. Can I speak now?
Yes, sure.
Like to speak on that. We would like that the AI and emerging technologies like blockchain and all, these should be part of our governance and work culture. Now what happened is, how do I get the governance is so many ministries are implementing so many schemes. So how do I get all the workforce to think aligned with us? So first we did was conversational AI. We started, people had only FAQs on the websites. We did what? Okay, you just put the FAQs with us. Help us. We gave them the Dialogflow engine. We did not have any data with us, but we have put 12 bots into production, chat bots, and 8 voice bots in production. So how did we do that? How did we get the ministries and the departments to accept this? That was one big challenge. So we allowed them, you enter your data into the system, you see the results, give the feedback, and then again we will modify accordingly. So we had a by NIC framework, and we did like that. So this is what I would like to tell people, that you have at least 10% of your youth in the organization who think out of the box. That is most important. And then the leadership should be there who will who encourage this type of work, so that we can make more penetration in the society of our active workflow, and we can come up to the levels which other countries are developing. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmishta ma'am. So I just want to touch upon one thing which Mr. Ramanan touched upon was the Atmanirbhar Bharat. And the first important pillar that he touched upon was the one on demographic dividend. And that relates to the skilled people in AI. So I would like to ask the industry leaders here about do they see the scenario about the talent in AI? Do they get enough supply of AI talent? And if they're getting it, then it's good. And if not, then what are the things that industry can do to increase the awareness, and not really awareness, the skill in AI, so that they can come and be the part of your organization? So any one of you can start. Mr. Vishwanath, if you want to touch, because you're already working with CBSE.
Yeah, so that's a very pertinent question, and obviously, I won't say there's a skills dearth. It would be incorrect to mention that. But having said that, what we have done is we have collaborated with Central Board of Secondary Education, which is CBSE, to infuse AI curriculum, which will help the organization and industry at large to ensure that we have the right skilled members and the colleagues coming out of these institutions as well, right? So that is one effort from IBM with the government out here in India. But it's, as I mentioned, right, AI is one element, and there has to be a data architecture and information architecture, which is even more critical. I think it is just a matter of time, as in when organizations continue on the journey of AI, we would see a lot more availability of skills in the across industry, in the market, in the country as well, to tackle that issue. I don't think at this stage we have that gap, if I were to so call it.
Okay, great. Thanks for your short and quick answer and to the point. Raghu, would you like to add anything to this?
Sure. Yeah. So the curriculum in a lot of our colleges have been greatly enhanced, and then AI is a core part of the curriculum, as you are well aware, right? So that way we get from the talent that we get from campus actually is pretty good. So we find some really good smart people who have worked in this space and have done some pilots and projects, there. So that way, that part of the talent pool is there, available and growing, right? Where we see a challenge is like experienced folks, so who have implemented a few large scale kind of projects in the industry. So that's where there is a dearth of talent, so that is something that will, I guess, improve as we go along. So we provide a lot of training for our employees. There's a lot of availability of courses and so on. So, and there is a lot of interest as well, right? So we provide a lot of training, to our employees to bridge the gap. So that's how we are trying to kind of bridge the gap. And also, as a part of the contribution, Mr. Ravindra Babu heads our data science team. He actually is actively participating in a few colleges to guide the curriculum itself based on the industry experience, that he has, and then solving business problems. So he's able to kind of guide some of the curriculum, AI curriculum in various colleges. So that's how I see it.
Great. Sharmishta ma'am, would you like to add to this, how the skills aspect in AI can be improved for students?
Yeah, actually, every organization should have this capacity building programs running first, and also if they have technical people, they should be training them in the new and emerging technologies. Like in NIC, we had this COE AI created with only 6-7 people, and this is the large structure of Government of India where we have so many projects running. So we cannot cope. How do I go about it? We have 800 NIC officers all over India, and in states. So we started taking in-house training sessions also, and then we took them outside also, like in capacity, like we took them to IIT Roorkee for batch for training on machine learning and deep learning. So like that, every organization should has to nowadays build into their capacity, and if they don't have the capacity, they can collaborate. That is another aspect. You might have the domain experts, others might not be having, and
Yes, yes,
that
sure.
you don't infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, and all you might not be having. But the thing is, you have to think out of the box. That is my most important for this
Yes,
session.
yes.
My most important is that you
So
develop the work culture.
that's a very important point that you bring in, that even after the skilling, I think the mind shift change around innovation is very core to drive the AI project. Thanks. That's a very important point. Rashi, would you like to add any closing thoughts? Any brief closing thoughts on this? You're on mute.
One of the things we really work to is leveraging the industry players, right? Academy is a big focus, and having the academy connect and working for co-creation, co-innovation is an integral part of how you evolve on the journey of innovation itself. So it's not about what I build in-house capabilities, but it's always about innovation is about outside in and inside out. So you have the best of both the worlds. And today, with the way how the academy connect is happening, how they are also enforced on having the emerging technology skill building, which is very integral. I can just give examples of how IBM is hiring, right? Now, IBM is also looking at, but not having like when people earlier it used to be that we need to have a master degree and you need to be qualified as an engineering graduate or PhD or whatever. But today we have evolved far beyond that, and they want with grads who are graduating with like deep skill technology, that is what they are looking at. So they want to hire somebody who's coming with, say, I'm a data scientist specialist or I'm already a data analyst. So that's the focus. And they're not looking at having a 4-year master degree. They want to come, they're looking at, okay, what is it you're skilled with? And that's very important. So today, even if you look at the future generations, or all the deep the techies and everybody is required to understand some level of technology, even if they're not going to be a deep tech person, but technology becomes the substratum and foundation of the way we live and do things. And that is why we are also, every organization and also with Rolls-Royce, we are invested in working with the academia, which is also an integral focus.
Thanks, Raj. That is really interesting. Like putting technology as one of the foundational layers. So even if people are not part of the deep tech industry, they are aware. Like we talk about digitally aware, they are aware about these technologies and they have some know-how. Like I think that's also the fact that will happen if you are training all the kids in CBSE on AI. You do not expect all of them to enter the AI industry. So they will go into different industry, but I think in turn what will happen is that these industries will benefit from that. The government of India also has come up with the future skills platform, and the MeitY has come up with a future skills platform. It offers a lot of skills in AI, data science, and these emerging areas. And they are in tie-up with the industry. A lot of industries have also given their courses. I know IBM, Microsoft, Intel, they have their courses in there, and it's a very vibrant ecosystem. I also request all of you to go and visit there. I think with that, I would like to thank all the panelists. I think Atimu has already left, so he is not there. Thank all of you. Thanks Vishwanath. Thanks Raghu. Thanks Sharmishta ma'am. Thanks Rajeshri for your insightful comments and making this panel very exciting and interesting. Bhavna, thanks a lot for emceeing and helping us with this. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarkar. Thank you so much to our panelists, our eminent panelists who've joined us, Mr. Rao, Mrs. Ramaswamy, Mr. Krishnananda, and Sharmishta ma'am. Thank you so much. And definitely, we did, yes, lose out right now on our one of our panelists, Atunu Roy, but I'd really love to thank him as well for giving in his valuable time. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.